Hey guys, Jeff Glover here with Glover U, coming at you with step 3 on lead follow-up and lead conversion. So before I jump into my notes, I want to make sure, I was just making a note to myself, to make sure, number one, if you haven't subscribed to our Glover Gazette, after this video, you can send us your home address, your office address, whichever address you want, so we can mail this out to you. But it's 25 pages of notes of things that we've been working on the last few months, how to build a big business. And what's really cool is we had our retreat this past June, so we've even got some of our notes for those of you that couldn't make our retreat in here as well. So send us a message with your address and we'll get one of these out to you right away. So, all right, let's jump in. Step 3. So step 1 was mastering our time, creating an awesome schedule, and just having a nice balance of business and work life. All right, step 1 was the time management. Step 2 was generating leads, right? And we broke that up into 2 parts. So we did kind of step 2, part 1, and then step 2, part 2. In those steps, for those of you that may be joining us for the first time, I went through all of my thoughts on prospecting and lead generation in part 1 of step 2. And then part 2 of step 2, I went through all 25 sources of business that we use to get business today. Of course, some we get a lot more business than others, and I covered which ones those are and why and so forth. So if you're just now watching us for the first time, I suggest you go back and watch step 1 or 2, because step 3 doesn't matter until you master your time in step 1 and generate leads, which we covered in step 2. So before we jump into lead follow-up and conversion, I want to make sure everyone understands the difference or definitions, if you will, of prospects, leads, appointments, and so on. A prospect is someone that could potentially buy or sell a home from you. We really haven't had any kind of conversation. It's somebody we're reaching out to the first time. That is considered a prospect by my definition. All right, there's a little bit of confusion between prospects and leads. A lead is someone who has already raised their hand and said, I'm going to be buying or selling a home at some point. And we've already had some type of interaction with them, whether it's over the phone or through digital media, whatever. All right, so a prospect is someone that we've had no conversation with. A lead is someone that we have been in discussion with in some way or another, and we're following up on that lead, for instance. So want to make sure we're clear on the difference there, at least in my opinion, my definition of those two. So let's talk about converting leads to appointments, step 3. First of all, it's important as an agent, no matter what your production level, whether you're an agent on a team, big team, whatever, everyone has to have a definition of a lead. And what I mean by that, and I was taught that early on by one of my first mentors, Mike Ferry, the definition of a lead is essentially somebody that's going to buy or sell a home from you in a given amount of time. Now, I would always say the lower you put on that time frame, the more homes you sell. For instance, if you claim that your definition of a lead is, say, 14 days, then you're going to sell a lot more homes than somebody that says their definition of a lead is someone who says 30 days or 45 days. And the reason for that is one word: urgency. You see, this is kind of what drives me nuts about our industry right now, because so many people are talking about, you got to nurture, you got to nurture, you got to nurture. And I think if you've watched a few videos by now, and not that I don't think that there's truth to that, because by the way, there are people that are wildly successful nurturing leads. I just don't believe in it. And the reason why I don't believe in it is because if you spend all your time nurturing, then you're going to miss out on the business, the people that want to do business with you right now. So I'm not a fan of nurturing. I'm a fan of finding someone that wants to do business right now. So I set my definition of a lead as, say, 7 to 10 days. The lower amount of time that I define a lead, the more urgent I will be at finding better leads, finding leads that want to do something right now, versus somebody that says, well, I'll work with anyone or talk to anyone that says they wants to buy a home in 3 months or sell a home in 3 months. Well, that's good, and you're going to get some sales that way, but the problem is that you're going to miss out on people that want to do business right now, because you're spending time with people that are going to do something 3-4 months from now. So first things first, I think it's important when you're putting your lead follow-up and lead conversion plan together that you identify what your idea of, or your definition of a lead is. How many days? So somebody, and I'll reference kind of back in the day, if you will, I had basically 2 folders, and I had 3 tools in lead follow-up, right? 2 folders and a trash can. And the reason why I did it that way is I had one folder, it had 0 to 7 on it. So literally it was just a folder like this, but it was, manila folder, and it said 0 to 7. I had another folder, same folder just like that said 7 to 30. And then my third tool was a trash can. And so my mentality was that if somebody isn't going to do something with me in either 0 to 7 or 7 to 30, meaning they were going to buy or sell a home in that amount of time frame, they were going in the trash. And the logic behind putting them in the trash was because it's out of sight, it's out of mind, I don't have too many leads, I'm spending time finding people that want to do something now. Now, there is one asterisk I'll put in there. And for those of you that don't know, I'm not the most tech savvy. Fortunately, we've got great people behind the scenes here that handle a lot of our technology. And so we're more advanced today than we've ever been. So I'm not encouraging you to follow the same plan that I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, which was literally tossing them in a trash can. Now what I would do is I would still probably have the zero, and by the way, a lot of our agents do this. I'd still have the 0 to 7 and the 7 to 30 folder, and I'd carry them around with me everywhere because, by the way, I did. I mean, they were this type of folder would be torn and tattered after several months because it went everywhere with me, right? Put it in my car whenever I go on appointments. When I go home, I just took it home with me. Because 0 to 7 were people that were going to buy or sell a home in the next week, right? They could list a home tomorrow. So I'm probably on them 2, 3, 4 times a day until I can reach them, and we'll talk about the lead follow-up, the rules of lead follow-up in just a second. But 0 to 7, I'm on them. 7 to 30, it was probably more like a couple times a week because I knew they were going to do something in the next few weeks, maybe in the next month. But definitely those were the two I was focused on, 0 to 7 and 7 to 30. The rest went in the trash. Today, the trash can, and don't laugh, the trash can is now the CRM. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that swear up and down by their CRM, and oh my gosh, you got to have a CRM, you got to have a CRM. I think that's a little bit of a cop-out. I think it's actually an excuse to get out of prospecting. I think it's an excuse to nurture business and not look for now business. So don't get me wrong. We have a CRM. It works. We get some business from it. But I'll tell you what, and this surprises a lot of people, prior to us having a CRM, we were doing about 900 transactions a year. After us adding a CRM, we were doing about 900 transactions a year. So it's not like it did any of this miraculous double our business, but it's a good tool to keep you organized, and I'm not poo-pooing the idea of having a CRM. All I'm saying is I want you to have the mentality that when it goes in the CRM, okay, unless you're using the feature where it's reminding you every day to follow up with somebody, all right? When you put something into CRM and it comes back to you, it's bonus business. When you set something up on a drip campaign and they come back to you, it's bonus business. It's not part of your plan of what you're going to do to build a predictable and profitable business. CRM business is bonus business. The business that I'm focusing on right now are the ones in my folders, the 0 to 7 and the 7 to 30. Why? Because I know they're going to do something in the next 7 days or the next 30 days. Anything beyond 30 days and they're getting set up on a drip campaign, maybe they'll come back to me. The whole logic behind that is because if they're out of sight and they're out of mind, then guess what's going to happen? I'm not wasting my time if people aren't going to be moving anytime soon, and I'm going after people that want to do something now, which is what everybody should be doing. So the definition is important because the bad leads in this business can cloud the good leads. We don't want to hold on to too many leads. You know, in my 0 to 7 folder, I'd probably have 7 to 10 leads in any given time. Now, my 7 to 30 folder was a little thicker. Probably had 20 or 30 people in there. But I don't want to hang on to too many bad leads because the bad leads are going to cloud the good leads. It goes back to that same thought on why I'm not a big fan of nurturing business. Because the nurturers are going to block out the time. They're going to take away the time you spend nurturing is taking away from the time that you need to spend with people that want to do something right now. And when we have too many leads, the reality is the urgency goes down. Again, it goes back to the folder system. The urgency is high. When you know with 0 to 7, they're going to do something any day now. So I want to make sure I keep my urgency up by not relying on a system or on nurturers and thinking that they're going to come back to me and predicting and planning on them coming back. When they come back, it's future business. So let me give you some thoughts on lead follow-up. Number one rule here is remember this: motivated prospects or leads love motivated agents. Unmotivated prospects love unmotivated agents. So if you're wondering how much you should be following up, really it's a matter of, well, how motivated are they? How deep did you dig to find out their motivation and how much they expect follow-up? If they're highly motivated, they're going to appreciate a call a day or a text a day. If their motivation's somewhere in here, they probably only want to hear from you once every couple weeks. If their motivation's down here, well, if you follow up with them every single day, I'm here to tell you, you'll lose that client. Now, for me, I was okay with that because I only wanted to work with the highly motivated people. But for some of you out there that are focused on nurtures or trying to keep in a relationship with the people that aren't that motivated, if you're super motivated and you're following up so much, you're going to turn this person off. You got to make sure that your motivation matches their motivation. How do you get your motivation to match their motivation? You have to identify their time frame and why they pick that time frame. So I'm not just asking the question, where are you moving to and when do you want to be there? Okay, it's what is today? August the 6th, all right? You want to be there sometime in October? How did you arrive at the October date? I'm digging deeper to find out their timeline. And then I can make sure that I match their motivation. So I'm a highly motivated agent, and most of you that are watching this probably are too, right? You're looking to get better. You're highly motivated. Well, you have to keep in mind, if somebody is going to be buying or selling a house in the next month, all right, they may not be highly motivated right now. So you're going to have to tone down your motivation to match their motivation. It's very important that the motivation of the agent matches the motivation of the prospect. Next thought or rule on lead follow-up. Remember, the majority of your appointments, 65 to 70% of your appointments will come from lead follow-up. All right? So if you're one of those agents that says, hey, I'm really good prospecting, but I'm not good at this lead follow-up stuff, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. So when I'm doing my prospecting calls, only 35% of the time am I setting an appointment, the appointments of the total appointments I set, only a third of those are coming from the initial call. Most of your appointments are going to come from the second or third follow-up call or follow-up email or follow-up text. So 65 to 70% of your appointments today will actually come from lead follow-up, not the initial follow-up call. That's an important point. Remember, we talked about the definition of a contact. Okay, someone that you reach out to, a decision-making adult that you reach out to that responds with anything. And you may reach out to them via digital, phone, email, text, whatever. When they respond to you, you're now in contact with someone, right? So I have written down here next, rules for lead follow-up and lead conversion. Specifically, ask for their motivation. One of our downfalls is not asking for their deep-rooted motivation. You may have heard the criteria questions before. If you haven't, write these down. This is the fastest way to get to somebody's motivation. Okay, there's 3 questions. Question number 1 is what's important about blank? All right, there's 3 questions. This is how you want to get to the root of someone's true motivation. This is how you do it. You use the criteria questions. Question number 1 is what's important about blank? Question number 2, how is blank important to you? And put in parentheses, insert answer from question number 1. So I may say, how is moving to Florida important to you? Okay, well, they say, well, we've got a place down there and we're ready to retire. We don't want to spend another winter here in Michigan. Great. So how is getting to Florida and not spending another Michigan winter here, how is that important to you? Well, we're tired of the winters here, and after last winter, that'll be the last one we spend here, and we've already got a place down there, so we're ready to go. Great, you got a place down there. This is question number 3, okay? Ultimately, what will all this do for you? And put in parentheses, paint the picture. Ultimately, ... what will all this do for you? So you've already got a place there. You're not spending another Michigan winter here. You got friends and family down there. Ultimately, what will all this do for you? Well, and by the way, sometimes this is where people get a little emotional, and generally this is where you're going to get the real motivation. Well, it'll allow us to fulfill our lifelong dream of living in the South and retiring peacefully and being on the ocean or whatever it is. You're going to get the real root of their motivation when you ask it that way. So question number 1, what's important about blank? You take the answer from question number 1 and put it into question number 2. How is blank important to you? Question number 3, ultimately, what will all this do for you? And put in parentheses, paint the picture. What I mean by paint the picture is take all of their answers. You already got a place there. You don't want to spend another Michigan winter. You're going to be on the ocean. You're going to get to retire. Ultimately, what is all this going to do for you? When I put it in that line of questioning, 1, 2, 3, I get the real answer and I get the real motivation, which ultimately for lead follow-up is important because then I know, okay, they're 0 to 7 or they're 7 to 30 or they're going in the trash can, aka CRM. All right. So we know that in the line of business that we're in, okay, we got 3 jobs: prospect, lead follow-up, and go on presentations. Everything else falls into place when we prospect, lead follow-up, and go on presentations. So those 3 are like the pillars of the business: the prospecting, the lead follow-up, which are kept separate, and the presenting. So when I had my schedule, and I think I shared it in the first video, I separated the activities. So prospecting and lead follow-up, it's not like I had prospecting and lead follow-up from 8 to 10, right? If you remember from my schedule, prospecting was from 8 to 10, 10 to 10:30 was skill building, role play, so forth, and then 10:30 to 11:30 was my lead follow-up. So you should set, depending on how many leads you have, anywhere from a half hour to an hour a day in lead follow-up, and keep it separate from the prospecting. Remember before we talked about everyone has this big funnel in front of them. Your goal is to put leads into the funnel. Goal is to put prospects into the funnel. Lead follow-up is like sticking your hand in there and pushing them through. All right, that's taking the prospects that are in there and converting those to appointments while you're pushing them through the funnel. Next, I wrote down, lead follow-up is just like prospecting. It's truly a numbers game. It's all about how many people you can go out and present to. Remember this thought. This is something I learned early on in the business. Leads really have no value. Everyone has the same leads. All right, everyone has the same prospects. You know, there's studies out there that show it. Buyers and sellers will reach out to multiple agents before they hire an agent. The value is in the appointment set and in the presentation. So if everything you can do can revolve around the appointment set and the presentation, then you're already ahead of the game. Don't spend all your time each day in your CRM. Okay, that's the mistake of what most agents are making nowadays. They think the CRM is going to be their savior in their business, and it's just not. So since 65 to 70% of our business is coming from lead follow-up, think about how much business we're losing by not following up like we should. Has this ever happened to you when you call a buyer or you call a seller and they say to you, I'm sorry, we've already listed with someone, or I'm sorry, we've already went with someone else? Has that ever happened to you? Okay, you're lying if you're not raising your hand. It's happened to all of us. That's what happens when we undercall on our lead follow-up. And take it from me. You know, I've been doing this 16 years. I've been managers of offices, so forth. It's not very common that we get a complaint where someone calls in and says, hey, your agent is following up with me too much. Remember, motivated prospects love motivated agents. There's no such thing as over-calling or over-following up. I'd rather do more than less. Next, our goal in lead follow-up is to call or reach out to them at the exact moment that they're thinking about making a decision to buy or sell. How do we do that? Okay, we don't always know, right? You've heard me say, for sale by owners, follow up with them on Monday. I mean, there's certain tricks and rules that we've learned over time, but the reality is how do you time it appropriately? How you time it appropriately is just being the most frequent, right? They're more likely to set an appointment with the person that follows up the most, right? I've said before, he or she who follows up the most wins the most, right? So you want to time it. You want to call them when the timing's right. Oh gosh, this weekend we were just talking about putting our home on the market. I'm glad you called this morning. Okay, there's no way to know that they were having that conversation. So how do you time it? You just call the most frequently. Next. The primary purpose of lead follow-up is to keep reselling them on the appointment. Resell them on the why they want to move. Go back to their motivation. So you all know who've been doing lead generation for a while now, you have a great conversation with someone, meaning, things are going well, it's jiving and flowing and you're feeling good about the conversation and you're just this close to getting an appointment set and they're not ready to commit. They're not ready to give you an appointment yet. The purpose of lead follow-up is to get them back to that point as quickly as possible. So what you have to do when you're doing lead follow-up is you have to remind them of the conversation that you had, how it went, what you talked about, and quickly get them back to that point as quickly as possible. The faster you can get them to that point, the more likely you are to set an appointment with them. We have to keep reselling them on that appointment. That is the primary purpose of lead follow-up. So let's talk about a rule that we've implemented that we've been using for a while. I call it the 3-4-5 rule. So write down on your piece of paper there if you're following along or taking notes. Just write down 3. Below that, write down the number 4. Below that, write down the number 5. Next to the number 3, the first rule, reach out to the lead a minimum of 3 different ways. All right? I don't care whether it's phone call, text, and sending them a letter, or phone call, text, and email. I don't care which phone call, text, social media. I don't care how you're reaching out to them. Make it a point of every lead you have that you're trying to set an appointment with, you reach out to them using 3 different methods of communication. All right? So the most common, of course, phone call, text, email. Okay? You don't have an email? Fine. Phone call, text, send them something in the mail. Find 3 different ways that you can reach out to them. That's the first rule on the 3-4-5 rule. The next rule, number 4. When you've reached out to a lead 4 times, okay, You've sent them 2 text messages, you've called them once, you've sent them an email, you've reached out to them 4 times. 4 different times, right? And I'm not talking like at the same time. I'm talking, Tuesday at 4, Wednesday at 9 a.m., Wednesday at 6 p.m., and then Thursday again at lunchtime. 4 different attempts, and you're not getting a response, throw them away. Now, again, throw them away means put them in the CRM and set them up on a drip campaign, but mentally, get rid of them, okay? Finally, number 5 on the 3-4-5 rule. So first rule, reach out to them minimum 3 different ways, all right? When you've reached out 4 separate times and you can't get a response, you go to the next step, which, of course, if you don't get a response, you set them up on a drip campaign. 3-4-5 rule number 5, you've had 5 conversations. They've responded to an email. They've responded to a text. They've responded to a phone call. You've talked to them in 5 different occasions, all right? You've had 5 different back and forths or texts, whatever, and you still can't get an appointment, move on. Set them up on a drip campaign. Let them know you'll be there for them when they're ready to come back to you, and toss them in the trash mentally, because chances are they're not coming back, and if they do, it's bonus business. I don't want you to rely on that, and I don't want you to count on it. Let the CRM do the nurturing. Spend your time with somebody that's looking to do something now. Key point, remember, the bad leads cloud the good leads. That's why we do that. If I have that rule in place, then guess what it does? It keeps my lead follow-up folder thin with just a few different leads. Right? If I don't follow this rule, then all of a sudden this folder gets like this thick, because now all of a sudden I'm accumulating all these leads, most of which who aren't going to do anything anytime soon. So you follow the 3-4-5 rule to only keep the most motivated leads in front of you at all times. All right, so last but not least, let's see here. When it comes to lead follow-up, all right, we talked about where it goes in the schedule, right? It should probably become after prospecting, but before the afternoon. The mistake a lot of agents make is they say, I'm going to do my prospecting in the afternoon, or I'm going to do my lead follow-up in the afternoon. It's got to come in the morning, but remember this, especially your hot leads, the ones that I kept in the 0 to 7 folder. I followed it. I took it with me everywhere. Why? Because I knew they were going to be listing in the next couple days. So when I got home or on my way home or in between appointments, I was going through. So keep your leads where they're easy to access and in front of you at all times. I cannot tell you how important that is. There you have it. That is step 3 of lead follow-up and lead conversion. You want a copy of our Gazette? They're going out right now. The next room over, there's stacks of them going out. So you want a copy of it? A lot of good stuff, 25 pages of content. Leave us your home address, message us, get us your office address, whatever. Reach out to us, let us know you want a copy. That's completely free of charge. And we will talk to you next week on step 4 when we get into presenting. Have a good week, everybody.